rains lashed Shillong in Meghalaya during the early hours on Friday. This has left many parts of the city reeling under flood waters and impacted normal day-to-day life. Waterlogging has been attributed to the lack of proper drainage systems. Guwahati also witnessed similar situation causing after a downpour in large parts of the northeast. Okay, Brijesh, if there is one thing that unites us as a country, we say there are many Indias within India. We're such a diverse country, so many different cultures, so many different languages. But if there is one thing that truly unites us from the north to the south and east to the west, it is the sorry state of infrastructure in our country that seems to collapse the moment it rains. It happens in the national capital, Delhi. It happens in India's so-called Silicon Valley, Bengaluru. And it's the same story in the northeast.
Well, I mean, that's why I say that, when you vote for, when you don't vote for infrastructure, you get the kind of infrastructure you deserve. And this is something which will keep on happening. Every year after year, every single monsoon, we see pre-monsoon preparedness, we see pre-monsoon meetings, we see everything. And forget why talk about Shillong when in the national capital, which is the center of power,
which comes to a standstill after 1 hour of rain. And you and I have been stuck in those traffic sounds.
The famous that Minto Bridge photo, which is a mandatory. It's like going to a hill station
on the front page of every newspaper.
Every single newspaper. So when you can't get the infrastructure of the national capital right to a level where it doesn't represent or portrays such a sorry state of affairs, what to say of Shillong and other places. I think this particular article is clearly mentioned that all these waterloggings, flood have been attributed to lack of proper drainage system.
Exactly.
Because you are not invested. The authorities know, the politicians know that the day when they start getting kicked out because of bad infrastructure, lack of proper drainage, how the city comes to a standstill when it pours for for an hour or so. The day, trust me, in a year from that day onwards, you will see all of these problems making a vanishing trick. The problem is that this is not an issue important enough for them to be counted as something which is detrimental to their political existence.
I have always wondered, Brijesh, why is it that these are not election issues in this country? Like you mentioned, Karnataka went to polls just recently and its capital, Bengaluru, is the worst hit when it comes to the monsoon. Its infrastructure completely collapses. Here on this channel, we've done show after show talking about how India's Silicon Valley comes to a standstill, making life absolutely miserable for people. The city gets flooded, and mind you, this happened days after the Karnataka elections. And yes, then you have the visuals of the chief minister and the deputy chief minister inspecting this area and inspecting that area, and I cannot help but wonder what is there to inspect. Did they not know, Brajesh, that the monsoon was going to arrive? Did they not know what happened last year and the year before that and the year before that?
So I'm telling you that, one of the annual picture is like, it's like you put your picture of your birthday every year, that's like, I've turned 30, 40, whatever. It's the same thing with this in the capital. It's the same thing which that, that techie women, imagine getting drowned or being,
because your car got
could
submerged.
I mean, had it been some picture from some back and beyond city, I could have still comprehended. But this happening in Bangalore, India's so-called IT hub and all. I mean, I honestly don't know what to say. And yet, year after year, the issues which will dominate your narrative is going to be, whether you went to the right mutt or not, whether you got your caste calculations right or not, whether you have got your deities or whether you are still upset about Aurangzeb or not.
So I was going to say that. I'm so glad you brought this up, Brijesh. Because we are discussing this on a day when, we were also discussing the controversy over Aurangzeb. So, even people in this country, not just the politicians, are still so caught up fighting over the ghost of Aurangzeb and Tipu Sultan. We're so caught up in fighting over religion, caste, community, ethnic identities. I mean, the number of issues over which we are divided. And the irony is that these are issues that actually unite us, and the issues
should unite us
that impact our lives, but the politicians don't talk about it and the people don't seem to talk about it.
You can't blame politicians not talking about it because it doesn't get you votes.
Yeah.
If you say that, oh my God, I have done like, I'm a apolitical guy, or I'm a political guy, but I don't have like, my pie in this or this caste calculation, or I've got you fabulous roads and all. But tell me with a hand on your heart, how many politicians do you know who have won on this kind of sterling performance?
Also, let's face it, Brijesh. Whether it's ordinary citizens, whether it's you and I, how many of us even bother to remember the names of our corporators, for example? How many of us bother to step out of our homes and even cast our votes during the municipal election? Because at the end of the day, these are issues that need to be settled by our civic bodies, by our municipal corporations. Let's face it, most of us don't even take these elections seriously.
The point is that's what I have been saying, right from the start, that, we get the election, or we get the government or the community, or we get the civic representations which we get, is what we deserve, and nothing more than that. And the fact that we do not pay premium at these footages where, it's like the car virtually getting drowned, or that girl, the car couldn't get out and she had to die in perhaps one of the most inhuman way possible. Yeah. So these speaks volumes about the fact that, till you start putting a premium this, till you start taking people accountable or holding people accountable for this mess, nothing is going to change. It's an annual story. Like honestly speaking, I seriously doubt if
it's a ritual.
It's a ritual. If these stories or these visuals of flooded house genuinely arouses any anger in anybody or not. I have a genuine feeling that it doesn't. Because if it would have been, some sort of area, some area in the entire country would see a turnaround, a change that, if you're not voting for, if you're not getting our infrastructure correct, we're not going to vote you back in the power. Exactly. Nothing of that sort happens. And you can't blame politicians for that. This I'm very, very clear in my head that you can't blame politicians for that. It has to start from us.
Because they know they're not being held accountable, Absolutely. They get away. And also,
they know that people don't want this, boss. They know that people don't want this. So
and let's not forget, Brijesh, that these civic bodies that we're talking about, from BBMP in Bengaluru to MCD in Delhi to BMC in Mumbai, which happens to be the richest civic body in Asia, all of Asia. The kind of money that these agencies have, and again the accusation is that they are steeped in corruption. The money is always going into the wrong hands, never being spent on infrastructure.
Absolutely. But you never have the government. See, the point is that once you start holding these people accountable, the thing is that, like, suppose for example something happens in BMC, those corrupt people are brought to book, they are sent behind bars, action starts taken, any kind of accountability or chain of accountability or chain of events leading to accountability happens, then people will be afraid of it. But the point is that it doesn't happen. Behind the photo ops and all, like, some poor guy getting suspended. It's like, that the shootout which happened in Lucknow, 6 constables suspended. So as long as you keep getting the constables suspended, nothing is going to change till one IPS gets behind bar or gets sacked for this. And then you see the kind of change that happens. So until unless you start getting the big babus start getting, being held accountable for the mess. I mean, you can keep on suspending the J's and the A's of the world without any change as far as the infrastructural.
And I'm sorry to say this, I mean, as much as politicians in this country are reviled, Brijesh, at least they have to go back to the electorate every 5 years.
Absolutely.
Babus seem to have no accountability in this country.
But that is the reason why, when people love to blame politicians for everything, I say that, politicians has to pass an examination every 5 years.
Yeah.
They are being held accountable. There have been people who have been in power for like God knows how many years, but those very people are now out of power for a very long time. So, they are held accountable one way or another. You may not like BJP, you can vote BJP out of power. You can like BJP, you can vote BJP in.
Yeah.
But these, the real problem is that the ironclad hold of the administration,
it stays forever.
The likes of the IAS and the IPSs and all.
It's almost as if you can't touch them.
Of course.
And what's most infuriating is when these civic agencies turn around and say, oh, but there was unprecedented rainfall. Every year there is unprecedented rainfall. Like, we didn't know it was going to rain. Like, we didn't know that we hadn't done desilting of our stormwater drains. Yes, thousands and thousands of rupees are allocated every year in budgets, but it all remains on paper. Where does this money actually go? I think will be safe to say quite literally down the drains.